Greetings, maniacs, New Englanders, and everyone else. I hope this video finds you well. With the aftermath of everything that's been going on here in the state of Maine, with an active shooter that took so many lives in an area that I live and work through and between, it's surreal, to say the least. And I think most everyone around me is in the same situation where we're coming to terms that this actually happened to us. We all knew it was happening when it was happening, but trauma's kind of funny because once it settles in, then you're like, wow. It was kind of a bigger deal than I first made it out to be, even though it was a big deal when I first made it out. So Maine has been distracted, and I have let my Maine ballot videos go a little bit, but I think that it's very important that we keep focusing on it because November 7th is next Tuesday, and what we vote on this will determine the outcome of our future for at least a few years, if not for many, many years, if not generations. And when we do this, I want it to be something we conscientiously do. No matter how anyone votes this coming voting season, I'm not telling anyone to vote any which way, but do vote in a way that's conscientious, where you're informed and educated and you know in a 75-25% ratio what the outcome will be or what you expect the outcome to be. And we're so busy. We're parents, we're students, we have jobs, we have animals to take care of, we do all of the above. We have elders to take care of, we have communities that we volunteer with, and so many things. But we can't get distracted. And so I'm hoping that my videos will help in that fashion, where it takes some of the burden off of you, where you can hear another Mainer talk from an average Mainer's point of view about what we're facing. And I think just exposure will be helpful, because as we're exposed to these questions before the ballot, they won't be so jarring, and you won't just vote off the cuff based on emotion, because we don't want policies run on emotion. Emotion is an aspect, it is important, it is there, it's part of the human condition, but it is not something that we should fixate on. It's not something we should run our morals on. It's not something that we should run our governments on. So emotions have their place, but I think we need to keep them in check, and we need to keep it logical, and we need to look at the facts and where the facts lead us, whether that makes us uncomfortable or not. And believe me, these questions, as I've dug deeper, have made me uncomfortable, because I realize that there's so much to them, and I am weary, because when the votes come out, I'm concerned that Mainers will believe they are voting in such a way, but that the questions are actually worded in such a way we're voting against what we really wanted. And I hope that made sense. So tonight I just kind of wanted to go over, after all of my researching, after all of my independent viewpoints, after all of my digging in and just trying to be rational, not emotional, trying to think like a Mainer and present it to Mainers. I guess I'll go through each question and give my feedback on it, and ultimately how I will vote. My parents, voting was always something personal and something kind of hidden, and I think that there's a lot of wisdom to that, but I also think that there comes a time when You just got to stand your ground, and you got to believe what you believe, and other people may or may not like it, and you have to decide, do you care what they think, or do you care about the beliefs and the principles that you're standing upon? These were selected in a random order, but the heavy loaded ones come first. So there's no avoiding it. Question 1. Do you want to bar some quasi-governmental entities and all consumer-owned electric utilities from taking on more than $1 billion in debt unless they get statewide voter approval? So question 1 was funded, probably funded, but it was spurred on after what we know as question 3 came into the ballot. So question 3 came onto the ballot from Maine, from Pine Tree Power. In response, CMP, Versant, Avangrid, NMAX together. Okay, so CMP and Versant, we're familiar. They're parent companies. Avangrid and NMAX funded, at this point, I believe it was $11 million. This one's not going to be factual. This is my opinion. So I'm not going to include facts, but I did include facts in every single one of these questions in previous videos. So if you're doubting what I say in question 1 or doubting what I say in any of the questions, simply go back to that video, follow the links provided in the description, and you will see all the links. I'm not going to do it again. This isn't a research paper. This is a personal opinion that I'm sharing widely online. So at this point, I believe it was $11.8 million that the parent companies funded. And what they were trying to do is get this question 1. Again, it's randomly selected. They didn't know it was going to be question 1. It got selected for the spot for question 1, but it was in response to Pine Tree Power. Pine Tree Power are Mainers, Maine citizens. They are thinking from the average Maine perspective. They are not trying to sell us out. They are not trying to give profits overseas. They are young and informed individuals backed up by science and research, statistics, and other states. I mean, Nebraska, what's happening in Nebraska with their electric company or their electric grid. So question 1, all you really need to do is get, I think it's 70,000 signatures. So CMP and their parent companies only needed to get 70,000 signatures to get this question on the ballot. And now, because of those 70,000 people that may or may not have known what they were doing, if you go to a college campus, they probably could have got dozens and dozens and dozens of signatures from people that aren't even thinking about what they're voting for. Don't even necessarily care. You just word it in such a way. Sign me up. And I can't blame them, because I was also there in college and wanting to make a difference and young with a bleeding heart, and we shouldn't allow that to be taken advantage of. We're still innocent in so many ways. So we need to protect that when and where we can. So question 1 is in response to question 3. You can vote yes on 1 and 3. It will complicate things somewhat, but ultimately I'm going to vote no on question 1 because CMP was so heavily behind it. CMP, Versant, Avangrid, NMAX, and then ultimately those lead to Spain. From Spain, it goes to Qatar, Norway, Calgary, Canada. There is no reason in my mind. I would never expect somewhere in Norway to be giving money to Maine, to the Maine government. There is no connection. There is no rhyme or reason. Sure, we have a Norway, Maine, which I live nearby, but That is not a deep enough connection, and especially for Spain and Qatar, Calgary, Canada. I mean, explain it. So question one, because of CMP, because of the backing there, I'm going to vote no on question one. And then, so again, I'm going to vote no on question one. Moving on to question two, again, randomly selected, so we'll get right back to CMP. Question two, do you want to ban foreign governments and entities that they own, control, or influence from making campaign contributions or financing communications for or against candidates or ballot questions? No. Hell no. No, 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 no. I do not want foreign governments. Okay, so do you want to ban foreign governments? The way they're worded. Yes. Yes, I want to ban foreign governments. I want to ban foreign governments, even if it's only 5% of a company that they own residing here in the state. That's too much for me. Tricksome questions, these are. That's why you have to be very vigilant and very observant, because they word these in a way that makes you believe you're voting in one fashion, and then it turns out you're voting in another. So, banning foreign governments and entities is important. We do not need them. We do not want them. Maine does not meddle in Qatar. Maine does not meddle in Norway. Maine does not meddle in Spain. And if we do, we should be aware. It should be something that us, citizens, the constituents of Maine, are very aware of and can decide upon for themselves. So yes, I want to ban foreign governments. So no on one, yes on two. No, I'll do that later. So question three, going back to CMP, the electrical grid, how much Mainers have been feeling the pinch just from having your cell phone charging, just from watching some TV, having your lights on. It is getting incredibly expensive. I've read comments of people that don't even live here, that they just have a home here, and their electric bill has gone up 3 or 4 times. So we're talking very, very minimal usage. Security lights, security cameras, possibly. Very low usage. And yet, they're still paying $100 to $400. This is getting untenable. It cannot continue. Therefore, it needs to stop. So what do we need to do to make it stop? That is where our vote comes into play. So question 3 says, do you want to create a new power company governed by an elected board to acquire and operate existing for-profit electricity transmission and distribution facilities in Maine? So what that does is it takes it out of CMP, Avangrid, Versant, and Max, takes it out of their control by eminent domain, and yes, there is some numbers, some variables in there. However, what's not a variable is the fact that if we don't do this, our money will be siphoned off for generations to other foreign governments. That's not a joke. That's not conspiracy. That is right there. It will continue to be siphoned off. Or we can take a risk, we can take a chance, and we can say, hey, an elected board of officials is better than an unelected board of shareholders. Those shareholders want profits. They want that money siphoned off. There are Mainers here with Pine Tree Power, and I'm not a member, I'm not paid for, I am nothing. I am an independent investigator, just looking into this myself, and I see that going with CMP is a bad idea. Janet Mills is with CMP. CMP is run by corrupt officials. They have been doing things that are schemy and behind the scenes, and they're owned by a company in Spain, Iberdrola. So all of this, Iberdrola, Spain, goes to Qatar and Norway. Like, we're talking about foreign governments, foreign countries. So this is a no-brainer. They are trying to give us propaganda. They are getting into our minds with the millions of dollars that they are spending. And us Mainers need to protect ourselves. Even though maybe many people may not see this video before the elections, what I do think is that I represent a growing rising of individuals from Maine and the US and the world at large. All of us are one race, the human race. We are all collectively coming to our senses. 2020 was traumatic. No one had been through, in our lifetimes, no one had been through what we had been through. Collectively, as a globe, on that kind of level. And maybe populations of humanity have never been through something like that before. So it was unheard of. Now we're coming to. The dust is settling, and we're coming face to face with what exactly is coming towards us on the other side, because there were people, there were organizations, there were individuals that either may not have orchestrated this, but definitely influenced it, definitely profited from it, definitely saw it coming by some means, and then benefited from it. But you and I, regular Mainers, regular US citizens, we did not. We're coming out of a collective trauma, and it will take generations of studying to fully come to terms with what exactly just happened to us. It was an experiment in a lot of ways. Maybe not initially, but there were experiments done 1,000% throughout this past 3 years. And you and I were the guinea pigs. So we need to start taking back the power. And again, whether or not many individuals see this video, I represent a growing collective of individuals from across the globe. We're waking up and we're coming to. So yes, I want to vote yes on 3. Pine Tree Power, it doesn't name it here, but that is what we need as a state. And it's worked in Nebraska, and I think that it can work elsewhere. So we need to do what we need to do to try and fix things, because what we are going through right now with electricity rates, it is not reasonable. We cannot continue it. Question 4. Do you want to require vehicle manufacturers to standardize onboard diagnostic systems and provide remote access to those systems and mechanical data to owners and independent repair facilities? Before, my argument was, if you own it, then you have all the rights, so you should absolutely be allowed the rights. If you're still renting from a company, whether it's a cell phone with electricity, agricultural, tractors and whatnot, vehicular with cars, or automobile with vehicles. My viewpoint was, if you don't own it, then you don't necessarily have the rights to it. But if you do own it, then you absolutely have the rights to it. I think this is a black and white question. There is no in between. So yes, do I want to require vehicle manufacturers to standardize onboard diagnostic systems and provide remote access to those systems and mechanical data to owners and independent repair facilities? It is a black and white question, even though I have some grayness in there. So black and white, I say yes. So that means if you go down to Joe Schmo's car repair, your neighbor that you know that owns an automobile mechanics shop, then you can go to him and he has the ability to plug into your 2019 plus vehicle I think it's 2017 is the cutoff, but either way, 2019 is definitely over the lap. Plug into your car and read and see exactly what the manufacturers see and read based on what the car is available to tell them. Not cut off at some point and they can only see so much. So black and white, yes, I want to require the standardization and the provision of remote access. Question 5. Do you favor amending the Constitution of Maine to change the time period for judicial review of the validity of written petitions from within 100 days of the date of filing to 100 business days of the date of filing of a written petition in the office of the Secretary of State, with an exception for petitions filed within 30 calendar days before or after a general election? So before I was on board with question 5, yeah, sure, I want to amend it. But the more that I think about this one, the more I realize that they've historically been dealing with this forever. And now it's becoming a problem. But now we have technology and we have people to hire to fill those positions to make sure that this goes through. So to me, this is another one that they're just trying to eat away at our democracy and what we've built. What we have here in Maine has worked for a long time. So now that I'm thinking about it, I don't see amending the Constitution of Maine unless it is absolutely necessary. And here, I understand the time restraints and that people are tired and that that they're overworking people. I would say that that is part of what they signed up for. That if you know you're working the holiday season in Walmart, you understand it is going to be a nut house. But that's what you signed up for. That's what you're getting paid for. You don't get extra pay, extra allowances because it's a nut house. No. You knew it was going to be a nut house. You're a public servant. You're working for the government. You're volunteering for the government. That is a heavy burden. And it should be a heavy burden. It shouldn't be an easy thing to bear for people to just casually toss it on and off when they want. No, that's not what I want from a government. A government should be small, limited, and the people that carry it, it should be heavy because there are heavy consequences with the outcomes. So, no, I don't support amending the Constitution of Maine to change the judicial review. Not a good enough argument. I want more. And if you need more help, hire more help. Figure out situations to get volunteers, vetted volunteers. Maybe they used to work for the government, so they have all the background checks and whatnot. But now they're retired, but they still want to volunteer their time. Utilize people, utilize AI. You can use AI to scan signatures to make sure that they match, to make sure that they're not fraudulent, to make sure there's not duplicates. AI will do that better than a human. So don't make that a human's job. That's tiring, cumbersome, and subjective. So make it objective. Use AI for that. Use a tool. Tools are there for a reason. Why use a heavy brick when you can use a manufactured hammer? Use the tool, use the hammer to nail in the nail. Use AI to scan the signatures and make sure that... crap. I've been talking away from this for so long. That is so unfortunate. So I hope that got across because I'm not going to refilm this. And when I was talking with my hands so elaborately, I realized that I needed something to weigh them down. This is disappointment happening live on camera. You're not watching it live, but I'm not editing, so it might as well be live. So, no. Amending the Constitution, use AI, use it where you need to, use it when you can, where it's not going to interfere with real humans' jobs. But we don't need to amend the time period when it has historically worked, and I haven't heard cases except for last year or last voting season, I suppose. So, no. Question 6. Do you favor amending the Constitution of Maine to require that all of the provisions of the Constitution be included in the official printed copies of the Constitution prepared by the Secretary of State? So I just said that I didn't want to amend the Constitution of Maine. However, what this amendment does is undoes another amendment from 1876 to then go back to the original. Question 6 doesn't seem loaded at all. It doesn't change anything legally. All it does is now make it all printed. Even the old, antiquated verbiage of how we first meet as a state because we split from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So in 1820. So in 1820, Maine became its own state, and because it became its own state, it had to have some legal language, sections 1 and 2, and so those got hidden, and then section 5 as well got hidden. Section 5 was about the Wabanaki Treaty and about the Wabanaki tribe and their freedom. Why that was hidden is suspicious to me, and I don't understand. Janet Mills and her team make it sound like there was never a wrong to be done for question 6 to try and fix, but I think if you read into it in any substantial way, you realize, yeah, we should never have hidden it, so we should unhide it as quickly as possible. So, yes, I do favor amending the Constitution in this way because it will unamend another. You can't remove something that's already been done in the past, but you can make an amendment on the amendment. So that's what's being done here. Moving on to question 7. Do you favor amending the Constitution of Maine to remove a provision requiring a circulator of citizen initiatives or people veto petition to be a resident of Maine and registered voter in Maine, requirements that have been ruled unconstitutional in federal court? No, I don't want to amend the Constitution. You have to be a citizen here of the state to make decisions for here in the state. I don't want people from Rhode Island, from Massachusetts, from out of state coming over here, from other countries coming over here and trying to dictate how we should vote. If somebody comes and knocks on my door and they present something to me, knocking on doors seems grassroots. It feels more personable. I'm more likely to agree with the person there on that other side. But if we allow people from other states, from other areas to come into Maine, then you have 60,000 people from the U.S. that have one specific weekend off, and then they come and just bombard the state of Maine in 1 week or 1 weekend, knocking on doors, well-funded, tricking Mainers into thinking and voting and advertising and propaganda. And no. There are 1.3 million people here in the state of Maine and growing, but we need to have a commensurate amount of people out there petitioning. And then what is something a grassroots in Maine supposed to do? Say there's a large push. 60,000 is a large amount of people, but say 60,000 people from out of state volunteer to come to Maine on a specific weekend and just rope Mainers into thinking what that organization wants. Then you have an opponent, grassroots here in Maine. They can get maybe 600 people, or maybe they really push and they do get 10,000 people. I mean, getting 60,000 Mainers together to then go talk to other Mainers, like, we're all so busy working. Mainers are busy working people. We are out there working hard. Yes, there is a significant portion on welfare, but I do think that more and more people, more and more young men are getting fed up with being lazy, staying at home, not using their minds, not using their bodies, just being useless, getting into trouble, doing things that are not good for the community, good for your family, good for you. So I think a lot of young men and men in general are coming to terms with this. And of course, there are those that are not. But I do believe that more and more people are coming to terms with, you know what? I got to clean up my act some. Maybe not a whole lot, but I got to clean it up. I think and I pray that more and more young men are coming to terms with that. And I can see it around me. There's a need for it. And when you start filling that need, when you start just being that, me personally, just going out there in the workforce, in a new workforce, I'm no longer on third shift. I'm now back to first shift. So that's messed with me. So I'm in a new situation and just always being, you know what, shoulders squared, back straight, walk with confidence. Like, even if I'm not feeling super confident, the world doesn't need to know that I have baggage or laundry to air. It's like, no, shoulders square, back straight, pull yourself together, smile at people, be polite, be courteous. If you don't want to talk to people, stay silent most of the day, but be respectful. And then when you are feeling good, you know, reach out and try to talk to people and just be positive, be a good male role model, because we are lacking that so severely. And the further that I start to do those things, the more I see other people respecting it, coming to appreciate it, and then wanting it, desiring it. So no, I do not want to amend the Constitution to allow out-of-staters or out-of-country people to come and persuade other Mainers into how we should be thinking. So lastly, and this video is a little bit longer than I expected, but I didn't really know what I expected because it's not factual. This is all my opinions. I am not doing this to persuade you to vote in any particular way. I am sharing my opinions on my channel with how I will vote, but I'm also trying to provide you with some insight as to what that means and to the outcome of those things. And then if you want more facts, well, if you want to follow up and reference these facts that I've been saying, and I'm not going to reference them in this video, you can go back to question 7, question 8, question 1, question 3, and I do a deep dive into each of those. So finishing up with question 8, do you favor amending the Constitution of Maine to remove a provision prohibiting a person under guardianship for reasons of mental illness from voting for governor, senators, and representatives, which the United States District Court for the District of Maine found violates the United States Constitution and federal law? So since it's up to us, since federal law has decided what federal law wants, but the state still decides what the state wants, in this case, I want to take state power back to the state, and then the federal government needs to amend themselves from there because they represent the states. The states do not answer to the federal government. The federal government answers to the individual states, and then as a collective decides and then has acts and laws, bills passed, voted on in accordance if we want to make something sweeping. So here in Maine, no, I do not favor amending the Constitution of Maine to remove the provision. This has already tried to be passed back in 1997, and then I believe again in 2002. Either way, it happened twice before. Both times it failed, and again, it needs to fail. I understand the humanity reasoning behind it, that every person deserves to be heard, but I call bull on that. Not every person deserves to be heard. If you're a child rapist, if you're a pedophile, then no. If you're a mass murderer, if you have committed egregious acts, continually against people in your community and your state, and you have been given every allowance and every chance. No. Voting is a privilege. You cannot just extend it to every crazy individual. There has to be a standard where we say, all right, if you can't get up in the morning and brush your teeth, comb your hair, dress yourself, make your bed, go to work, come home, if you can't do that regularly without having major hiccups, obviously every single day we're going to have minimal hiccups. There's no normal day. You're not going to have a day where things go, well, okay, those are very, very rare and in between, where everything just goes so smoothly, like it's living on the prairie. I don't know where that reference came from, but that's not going to happen. So minimal hiccups are going to happen. But if you're doing those things and you have major hiccups all the time, and then you're having help living, going through things, and I'm not even necessarily talking about elderly people, because if you're elderly, my grandfather lived to be 96 years old, and up until the last 6 months of his life, he was coherent and he was cognizant. He knew what was going on and he could vote. I will say there is a certain point where it wasn't going to impact him so much because he was 96 at the time, but he was still coherent. That being said, there are 70-year-olds, there are 60-year-olds that have already in the grips of dementia, and maybe their family's taking care of them, but they seem reasonable enough to vote most of the time. No, I think there has to be a limit. And guardianship, especially if you're a young individual, you do not want to be under guardianship. If I was a 33-year-old male under guardianship, that is not where someone should aspire to be. So if you want to have the freedom to vote, if you want to have the freedom to express your opinions and to have it impact the community around you, be a respectable community member. And obviously we're all going to have our sad times. Obviously we're all going to have our down times. But even people that are sad, even people that are down, still throw on a beanie and sweatpants and go to the grocery store and do what they need to do, even if they're not feeling their best and feeling their greatest. And so if you're so severely off that you are under guardianship, then I'm sorry, I don't think we should amend the Constitution to allow that. So these are some hot takes. These are all my takes, and some of them I honestly was reevaluating them as I was saying them, but that's because I've spent so long studying them, reading about them, hearing other people's opinions, and giving small amounts of feedback, but ultimately letting the conversation go organically where it went. Now I'm taking this in my own personal experience and I'm realizing, no, I have changed a few of my votes from what I thought. So I am going to vote, do I want to bar some quasi-governmental? No. Question 1, no. Question 2, yes. Question 3, yes. Question 4, yes. Question 5, no. Question 6, yes. Question 7, no. Question 8, no. Those are some of the most split, in my opinion. A lot of times when I vote, it's yes, 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 no, no, no. Maybe a yes, yes, no, no. Rarely is it so divided from what I can remember. Leave some comments down below from what you experience or what you're thinking. Whether you're in Maine or not, a lot of these issues are universal. nationally, but even globally, whether they have hit the global market, global perspective or not. These are issues that I do think if they haven't started here, they are starting here and they're expanding. So, thank you for following along this far in the video. And thank you for following along with the series. If you have, I delve deep into questions 1 through 8 separately. I've mentioned a couple times in this. So if you want more information, go back. I'll leave a video in here where it talks about, I'll leave a video for question 1 where it digs deeper into CMP, because I do think that is where most of the controversy is going to come in this ballot. And I want people to be aware, especially because there are millions and millions of dollars used as propaganda against us to have us vote in another direction. So once again, thank you for following this video. Thank you for making it this far. Go ahead. I hope I've earned your like and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.